Is this me peeking?
Is this
We're
the
good?
panel? Is
Yes,
this us
this
like
is
talking
us.
to? Okay.
Yeah.
No,
All right, well, I got some questions.
Thank you for
So-
starting the panel, Spike.
Yes, thank you, guys.
Great job. We're
gonna-
rolling.
Don't break
We're
the fourth wall
no
on the
intro. We're just
panel.
going right into it. We're gonna pretend like this is a natural, unstaged conversation.
How was your day,
It'd be better,
Adam?
honestly.
Any other tech issues you guys can solve while you're up there?
I mean, the
Tech
lighting
issues.
could be better, but, you know, I mean, that's it.
Yeah, get rid of government and we all get self-flying cars. There.
Oh,
There we
that'd be
go.
nice.
So the purpose of this is just going to be another panel where we get to sit down and have some great conversations, ask some questions to some of our amazing guests that we had here this evening. These questions were thought up by the event committee, and they were things that they thought that would be really important to get their perspectives on. So I'm just going to kind of ask a couple questions and just allow the conversation to play out from there. That's kind of how, you
Put a
know, it
timer
goes
on
natural
Adam.
anyway.
2 timers. Just
I don't know. He was on
In case you don't hear the
our
first.
podcast episode went like an hour and 37 minutes, I think, with all 3 of you. So I don't know if it's gonna. All right. So to start here, what, in your guys' opinions, I'm gonna start here with Adam since he's to my left. What is your absolute minimum function of a government, and how would that be funded in your vision?
Government or a state?
They worded it as government. What is the absolute minimum function of a government?
Okay, well, I got 2 answers to this, and neither of them are going to directly answer your question anyway, so
Beautiful.
I'll just launch right into them. If you're a minarchist or an anarchist, you're wrong. You're not a libertarian even, dare I say, because real libertarians don't join parties. But if you're a minarchist or an anarchist, that's a kind of central planning fallacy to say that you have a vision that will work for other people beyond your own preferences. So like this idea of like my vision of government doesn't really matter. I mean, I think that seriously though, the anarchist-minarchist divide is the dumbest false dichotomy in the movement, and it's so destructive and divisive, and it's a dumb trick. Because if you're a voluntarist, if you believe, and this is the term, if you don't want to avoid these dumb divisive terms, voluntarist describes someone who adheres to the non-aggression principle and the party statement of principles. So if you're a voluntarist, if you believe in those principles, it's like government can be as big or as small as you want it to be as long as it's voluntary. And like if you say you're a minarchist, you say, well, government should be this size. For who? Really? Are you going to say that a voluntary socialist commune that's functioning, everybody's happy at, like can't do what they're doing because too many of their functions are under the term government?
Right.
Like, no, I mean, it's a silly kind of limiting language behind that question. So to answer it, like from my perspective, well, on July 4th of this year, me on my 10 acres in Arizona, I will be declaring our independence and complete sovereignty from the United States. I'm so American, I had to start my own country, separate from the United States. So it's the Garden of Freedom, we call it Gardenia. We're doing it on July 4th this year, and it's just a coincidence. The date just kind of worked out. I know we're going to have like the same birthday. You're going to have to choose whose party to go to. Might be kind of awkward, but, and we have a great plan for funding this new government. We're going to talk about how well funded should our government be. On July 5th, we're going to declare war against the United States. And then on July 6th, surrender and admit that we're a narco-terrorist state so that we qualify for billions in foreign aid. And we figure,
Beautiful.
it's just like when the LP got to, when libertarians were lumped in with domestic terrorists, didn't you make a joke? We were supposed to, where's our shipment of
Where's our
guns and
Toyota
pallets of
Hiluxes? Yeah.
$100 bills, right?
Yeah, where's our Toyota Hiluxes? Yeah.
So I am King Adam Charles Kokesh the First of Gardenia. Forever may he reign.
Thank you. There you are.
And this is first of his name.
First
Thank you.
of
Yes.
his
Oh,
name.
the titles, formalities. It goes on and on. It's a really long title. I don't want to go over on the panel, or But,
Definitely.
and the Garden of Freedom also has a full name that's like 30 words too.
Because why not?
So it's
why
a
it's your name.
constitutional proprietarian monarchy. I'm the king. I own it. I'm sovereign. It's mine. How big or small should it be? As big as I want.
Would then, I guess, to break it down, would then your assumption of government be personal? If you were to
Assumption of
define
government.
government, the absolute minimum function of government, is that at the personal level? Because that's kind of what I'm getting out of what you're saying.
What appeals to me about localization is that it's community. You say the way I describe it is get government down to the community level. Because a community is something that you choose to be a part of and therefore is voluntary.
Yes.
You can choose to leave. You can choose to have a community of one, or a family, or is and like when libertarians come and
I
say,
warned you.
all right, second timer. That was one. That was the first.
That's the first timer, yeah.
Thank you.
Karen,
What was the question again?
what is the absolute minimum function of government in your opinion, and how would you fund it?
Well, I'm gonna play it really safe and just define it as the way the statement of principles does. It's whatever kind of state government you have. They can't violate rights. So whatever they can do that doesn't violate somebody's rights, then I don't have an issue with it. And as far as funding, well, they'd have to fund it in a way that doesn't violate people's rights.
Absolutely. Perfect.
But I do agree with Adam, though. I wouldn't call it voluntarism. I'd call them panarchy, which I like that term
Yeah,
better.
yeah.
But yeah, if there's a bunch of socialists that all agree to it, what do I care?
Exactly.
I'm
Yeah,
glad
the
you
local
agree
level.
that I should be king.
No, well,
Of your own land.
Of your tenant.
listen, if everyone on your land agrees to it, what do I care?
Yeah,
If
exactly.
they don't, they get kicked off.
That's the
See
thing.
how that works?
Is it a helicopter?
Wood chipper. Spike.
So I'm going to do something really controversial and essentially agree with everything they just said. But I'm going to do it way better because I'm going to say it my way. No, so here's the thing, guys. It's something I say a lot, and I talk about this a lot because people will say, what is your preferred form of government? Well, my preferred form of a state is one that doesn't exist at
Right.
all, because the only proper government is one whose existence is only to protect the lives, rights, and property of the people under its presumed jurisdiction, which it can't if it presumes jurisdiction over people that don't consent. And it has to be funded voluntarily, which no real state can. There would be no way for it to function as a state without taking money from people by force. That's my personal opinion. One thing I say a lot is, if I were to snap my fingers and make government go away, I don't possibly have the hubris to be able to claim that I know how each and every one of you should be able to voluntarily organize your societies. And it would take even more hubris for me to say that you're all going to voluntarily organize your societies the exact way I think that you should. So, basically to what both of them said, it's pretty much what I'm saying, that in order to have real freedom, you need to be able to voluntarily organize in every way you see fit, and that includes the form of governance that is over you. I think that, something Karen Ann was alluding to, government doesn't necessarily have to be the state. Government can be a person on 10 acres of land declaring himself king, and everyone there going, okay, how widespread that's going to be, well, it remains to be seen. But government can be people choosing to voluntarily work together and to voluntarily set up a structure for that. The way that you keep it from becoming a state is that everyone always has an option to opt themselves, their lives, and their property out of that
Without having to move.
without having to move with what they have. The other part of that is that it's voluntarily funded. As long as those two things are met, that is a proper form of governance. It's not going to be a big government because you can't possibly get the consent of 300 people or 300,000 people, much less 300 million people. So yes, it means localization. Yes, it means what we would as shorthand call anarchy, but it's going to be people voluntarily choosing how they want to live.
Amazing. Yeah, I think honestly we all are echoing the exact same sentiment, which we've been talking about all day long, which you just brought up. Localization is truly the key to moving forward and removing that intrusive feeling of having the power always over some other group of people.
Decentralization of power,
Exactly.
exactly. Yeah.
So moving along here, what is the biggest opportunity that you think lies ahead for the LP, and what do you think we need to do to seize on it? And I'm going to start opposite. I'll start with you this time. Spike.
Okay. So the biggest opportunity we have, obviously, is to become the predominant party in this country and to have a snowball effect in other countries as well. In order to be able to do that, we need to grow it from the grassroots up. Not just because it's what we have the capability of doing right now with our resources and our money and our wherewithal. We've already won hundreds of elections that way. We can win thousands more by focusing on that. Not only because it is the way to kill all of the main narratives and excuses that are given by people why they don't vote libertarian. Well, I only hear from you every few years, and I don't think that you can win this race. Or I only hear from you for a few months every few years during election day, and I'm not sure you can win this race, and I'm not sure your ideas work. You kill all of those by showing it at the local level that you can win, that your ideas do work. And that they do constantly hear from you, not just a few months every few years during election day, but also because that's the natural order of things, is for individuals working voluntarily with other individuals to grow what they want to see from as small as possible, moving out from there. And that's how this organization is going to grow as well. It's going to grow from getting thousands of libertarians elected at the city level, at the county level, at the state level, and eventually at the federal level. And I think that the way that we do that is by being involved in our communities, by showing them how our ideas work, not just in explaining it, but actually demonstrating how it works, and watching the returns roll in from there, watching people's lives change as a result of our policies and our advocacy and our positive action that we're taking, working its way all the way up to us eventually being able to kick all of these clowns out of office and put the power back in the hands of the people where it always belonged.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Karen?
Okay, I'm going to say something that a bunch of people are going to disagree with. So you don't expect anything different from me.
I was going to say, really?
Yeah.
I love you.
I think we need to come to the realization that, and we all pay, well, most of us pay lip service to it, but I don't think we really believe it, that politics is a lagging indicator of social change that has already taken place. So I actually think we need to focus more on being the social movement that will then change the politics. We're doing it backwards right now. We think we're going to get elected and change social policy, and that is just not how it works. So I do think, I'm not saying don't focus on elections, obviously not. We're a political party. But because we haven't had the social change, what we do is we start electing people that even if in their heart they're libertarians, they campaign like semi-libertarians because they think they have to pander in order to win. And that's never going to happen. If I want to pander, I will go with the two big parties who have more money to do it and have been doing it for much longer and do it much better than we can. We need to be bold libertarians. And if you don't win that race, just rest assured that people have heard your message, and that will start the social change that maybe the 10th person down the road is. But unfortunately, and again, at the risk of offending people, what we're doing right now a lot of times is nominating candidates that rather piss their pants rather than say an actual libertarian thing, and I'm tired of it.
100%.
Woo!
She didn't mean me, by the way. I just wanted to.
No, not him. And not Joe. Not Joe at all. I was thrilled with this top of the ticket.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Just for clarification.
Well, everyone knows I'm talking about Bill Weld, so that's okay.
We're all
people. And like, y'all remember my analogy about this moment in history, like we're at the peak of Mount Everest, that our ancestors got us here. Now we get to put the rocket ship together to get off the planet. Well, we're standing here at the top of Mount Everest, and we're scared. Not just us as libertarians or activists, like humanity, we're going, oh shit. And it's really tempting to fall back on the old ways that got government in the power in the first place, where they said, well, you need us for security. Make them remember why they need us, right?
Yeah.
And now, I think giving people that vision and saying, no, we're graduated from that old era of bullshit. You're a free, beautiful, independent human being. Reclaim your emotional freedom, understand these ideas, apply them to your life, and be empowered by it.
Absolutely. I think we're seeing that now more than ever, actually. I think that people's eyes are awakening, that we are on the peak of that mountain. And if we don't build the rocket ship, we're going to fall off that mountain.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a really great analogy to keep bringing up.
You have the opportunity to shape human destiny from now on, or you can be left behind.
Right. And, in the same vein of things, this next question here, tell us, and I'll start with Karen, tell us what you feel the LP missed the mark on this last election cycle, and what you would have done differently.
Okay, I focus a lot more on personal activism than electoral. And I'm not saying the party needs to do that, because each of us need to, I say, my personal slogan is find what you love and let it kill you. So doing the campaign things hasn't been my focus, so I'm probably not qualified to answer that question. All I know is on the things that I really care about, I was in love with our ticket. So I'm not really the best person to ask that. That wasn't my wheelhouse. Sure. So one thing I would say, and it might be considered slightly critical, but maybe not, because again, I don't know what opportunities it had, but wherever debates and things were being held, I actually think our candidates need to be more willing to get arrested, to be honest with you.
I
to
tried.
make a stink somewhere.
It's not that hard.
I tried.
No, I don't know what opportunities there were. I really don't. But I know that we need to get in the face of the people. Most people don't know about the ballot censorship that goes on. They really are ignorant of it, and I think they would be indignant. Mm-hmm. And that's an issue we need to push forward, the ballot censorship, because everyone thinks that little Johnny can just run to be president one day. No, he can't. Yeah. That's all a lie. And we need to really expose that lie. And if that means like chaining yourself to the door where debates are being held, I know COVID was a whole thing. We need to be willing to do that. Yeah. And that's what I would like to see more of.
Absolutely. I think having Adam, he knows almost more than any of us
about
getting arrested.
Civil disobedience.
Yeah.
Though I literally, it inspires me. Even as the chair of this party, I was even talking to my wife about finding just stupid, off the chart laws that are just ridiculous, and go and have a group of people go and break them. And just show up and say this shouldn't even be on the books. Why are we prosecuting innocent people for this? And doing that kind of activism, because I think it's important.
Did it with ballot selfies.
Yeah.
So something last year that we were planning on doing, but because of COVID, we couldn't get enough people to do it. This was actually something I was going to do during the vice presidential nomination contest. We were going to go to places where it was illegal to feed homeless people, which is most major metro areas, and just go do it anyway. And announce that we were going to do it, and set up a Facebook event and everything, and encourage other people to come out and do it, and go out and do it and live stream it with multiple cameras so everyone can see us doing this. And inevitably, when the police show up, we can say, and we would tell people ahead of time, if you don't want to get arrested, this is when you stop and say, hey, look, the police won't allow us to feed homeless people. But if you're willing to get arrested with the rest of us, then we're going to continue feeding homeless people until they slap cuffs on us for it. Now, because of COVID, we didn't have enough people that were willing to do that.
Look how much attention Storm Area 51 got.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a joke, but it's not a joke.
It got so much attention. And that dude who did the Natoro run, he's my hero.
Now, one thing that I was able to do, also, again, did not get arrested. Like, for the life of me, I couldn't get arrested. We were in Miami. We did a couple times where the police would tell us, you can't do your event here. And I'm like, well, we're here, the bus is here, the people are here, we're doing the event, I don't know what to tell you. But in Miami, it was really bad, because there were a bunch of police there, and they had already shut down the venue, and they were waiting to see what we did. So I finished my live stream with Gloria Alvarez, and then we got out and we did the event anyway. We just did it outside, and we turned it into a salsa party. We went and we danced all night, right in the middle of Calle Ocho, in the middle of Little Havana, and across the street are the police watching us do this, and I'm waiting for us to get arrested, and then Univision shows up, and a local ABC affiliate shows up, and a couple of podcasters show up, and I thought, oh good, now we're going to get the attention, and I'm going to get arrested, and then we can go from there. And what ended up happening was, I think because the media showed up, they just stayed over on their side of the street and let us do it, which was also kind of powerful, because we showed people who had not, in Miami, the middle of Little Havana, had not had a salsa event since COVID started. This was October. They went the entire summer without dancing until we showed up. And we showed them, we're going to do this anyway. This is what we love to do. We are not hurting anyone. We are practicing our right to peacefully assemble, and they didn't do anything about it. So in one way, it actually became more powerful, because we showed them. All this power they say they have is illusory. There's what they're willing to enforce and what we're willing to accept. And when what we're willing to accept is more powerful than what they're willing to enforce, it ends. And that was a perfect example of that.
Absolutely.
Hey, what Tyrion Lannister, what was it? On Game of Thrones, where's power? It's where men believes the power resides.
Yep, exactly.
I can also piggyback just a bit, and then I'll get to have you answer this question. For those that were at the Madison event, you might not have known, we had no permit no permission, and actually the city of Madison fought us tooth and nail to have that event even happen for Joe Jorgensen this year, and we still held it at the grounds of the Capitol. We still had amplified sound. Her crew was amazing, blasting rock music, and it was a great time. Everybody was having a great time. The cops came by, the Capitol Police were there. Nobody did anything about it because all of us were being respectful, and they, realized we were just practicing our right to assemble, so they left us alone. And exactly, it empowers other people. There are people that literally just showed up off the streets to be part of the event because like, what's happening?
Yeah,
Like,
that's
it
what
was
happened in
cool.
Miami.
And doing it peacefully. 'Cause
Yes.
everything everyone sees now is, busting windows
Yep,
and
yep,
stuff
Exactly.
like that.
Yep.
Exactly.
So Adam, as far as you, is there any input you could give as far as where you feel like there's a bit, more emphasis that could be put as in the LP in areas?
Well, I like everything I've heard so far in response to this, but I think there's one thing more fundamental even for 2024 that's the same thing I was offering the party for 2020, and assuming the support is there, I'll be running for the nomination again, and I would not suggest that I'm the best person to carry the torch necessarily, or that this idea is the best idea, but the idea of radical localization, throwing the ring in the fire, saying, well, you're going to give me the ring of power, what am I going to do with it? I'm sorry,
it, yeah.
I'm not going to be president. We shouldn't have one. We don't need one. Like, we can take the federal government through a peaceful, orderly, responsible bankruptcy process. And that's a serious, meaningful offer to the American people that the LP has yet to really connect with. And we say, well, you like a president who's red or blue, we'll give you a yellow president. Most people just, okay, another political party. And I hate to sound like I'm harping on this, but a lot of our failures as libertarians come from shying away from the righteous truth of our principles.
Right. Yeah, the term even radical gets a very bad term, a bad connotation put to it, when you throw that around. I use that like for my board county supervisor role. I say I'm a radical voice for rational voice for radical change. And the way I try to explain that to people is it's only radical because it's literally opposite and opposing to what the state tries to make you live through every single day.
Right.
And it feels radical to you, but once you actually start processing what it means in your life, it's literally what everybody already wants. So it's not radical at all.
And there's ways to do it now. In Colorado, again, I don't know if the same opportunities are here, but where I live, Castle Rock just became a home rule town. Now we're working on making Douglas County, our county, a home rule county. And if that's something that is in your political system, whatever state you happen to be in, that is very practical, doable thing that you can do now.
For those who don't know what home rule is, if you can tell them.
Where you're not, like for instance, in Colorado with this whole COVID thing, we're under the dictates of something called Tri-County Health. So if you were home rule, then you're not bound with these other counties. You make your own, you make your own decisions for your own local area. So you basically opted out of some of the statewide
Extra county stuff,
yes.
yeah.
And again, it can be as much or as little as you want. It's not like a standard one-size-fits-all. But that is localization, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a question for Karen, because your slogan, your personal slogan was "Find what you love and let it kill you." Mm-hmm. Well, I really love cannabis. Does that mean I'm going to live forever?
You're not going to die from what you love, yeah.
So I would like to explain what I mean by that, because I think as a volunteer organization, we miss the mark on this. Like, say you're a state affiliate and you needed somebody to design your website or whatever it might be, and you have some volunteers, and they could do it, but they hate it. If you keep having volunteers do something they hate, you're not going to have volunteers for long.
Yep.
So my attitude with volunteers is, I don't concentrate so much on what I think I need. I ask them what they want to do.
Yes.
And I let them follow their bliss, and you might find out you needed something you didn't even know you needed.
100%.
So I think as an LP, we fail a lot in that, and that's why we don't keep our volunteers. So even, I just did a bunch of training of historical volunteers. I go, right now you're just starting, you don't know what you love, but once you figure it out, I'll let you do all of that. There's some people who just love posting election statistics on LPDA. I'd rather eat my own foot out of a bear trap. But I love bylaws, and most people would shoot themselves in the head. So, but everybody has their passions, and you need to let people follow their passions.
Exactly.
And then you will have the best activist organization ever.
And a perfect example of that is both of those sound like a nightmare to me.
So this is one thing that is really important for recognizing how the traditional political playbook kind of fails us as a movement. Because if you're a Republican or a Democrat and you go to volunteer, you want to submit to authority. That's like inherent in their ideology compared to ours, at least. Whereas if you treat volunteers to libertarian causes like average volunteers, or even like yourself, when you show up to a food bank or to the Special Olympics to volunteer, you go, oh, well, what do I do? Where am I needed?
Yep.
But when it's long-term libertarian activism and volunteering, we are all looking for something a lot deeper out of this. And so I like to ask people like, a lot of people, well, what should I do? I want to be an activist, Adam. Like, what do I do? And it's like, well, what's the most satisfying and sustainable thing for you that you're going to get the most out of?
Yep. If you're not getting paid for it, where it's helping pay your
You better
bills,
fucking love it.
yeah, you better love it, or it's going to be something you're going to do for a short period of time, hate it, not be able to provide
And then
really good
go.
turnout, and then you leave, and you end up not wanting to help with anything else either because you just have a really bad taste in your mouth. So.
Yeah, I literally volunteer 40 hours a week unpaid, but I love every second of it.
Yep.
Yeah. I love being from Iowa, I love the phrase, if you build it, they will come. And that's exactly, what you're saying. You build that foundation of just allowing them to have a place to operate, and then they'll fill the spaces for you, I'm a testament to that as well. I literally just self-started everything we've done for Door County for Liberty. I do absolutely all of it myself, no incentive other than just wanting to do it.
Wanting
And
to
it's
do it.
what I'm passionate about. I'm kind of sick about graphic arts.
If I may, there's a bigger point to be made from that. We say if you build it, they will come. I don't want to dispute that what you're saying is true in an organizational framework. That you can expect some spontaneous order. That's a beautiful thing. But how many times do libertarians screw this up with events? Oh, if we just put together an awesome event,
Oh,
they
yeah,
will
you
come.
need somebody to
It's
lead the direction.
Even
Yeah.
with this, no, you got to promote the shit out of it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Don't have that. Don't
No,
let
no, no,
that
no.
point turn into the bigger fantasy of.
Absolutely
Oh,
not.
if we build it, they will come. It's like no.
No, absolutely. You got to also put the work in. That's part of
if
it.
you build it with direction
Yes.
and an actual plan, they will come.
Yeah.
If you
Exactly.
just build a thing, they actually probably won't come. Yeah.
Well, libertarians have this fantasy because we're generally those of us who have converted to this ideology or moved to this we're the early adopters, right? And the later adopters are going to come to it differently. We have to be patient. We have to keep that in mind. And we have this fantasy as activists. This is true about all sorts of independent cause or individual legal case kind of activists. I found this really compelling, so everybody else will find it compelling and they'll find it on our own. And it's like, no. People need guidance and leadership and encouragement and love and support.
And you need to meet them where they are.
Yep.
Yes.
That's a big part of it too, because they're not all in this room.
No, they're not.
Spike, I'd like to finish off with you in that same question. You were on the campaign trail this whole last election cycle, and you saw, on the ground, what were the areas you felt like, even you personally could have, stepped up to the plate and done a little more, and as an organization for the Libertarian Party, where maybe you could have had some more support in some area or somewhere they could have, put a little more effort in?
I'm going to talk about me because, first of all, I don't want to throw anyone else under the bus, and second of all, I know best what I was doing wrong. I can talk all day about what I think other people are doing wrong, but I don't think that's very helpful, and it's not very actionable.
Exactly.
I can tell you from a personal accountability standpoint, in retrospect, I would talk about the main issues that were going on, but I would also try to talk about the entire palette of libertarian beliefs as widely as I could. In retrospect, we have very, very limited amount of time when we're campaigning, not as a party,
Right.
not in messaging, not right now when it's the off season and we're trying to get as many people in as possible and get our ideas out there, but during the actual height of that campaign, that last 2-3 months of the campaign especially, you need to pick 1 or 2 or maybe 3, but really 1 or 2 things, hammer away at them, make sure those are the things that people are talking about, that's the main focus people have the best answers for them, and constantly wail away on that. That is messaging discipline. It is crucial for candidates, and it was something that I often would end up also talking about, something that wasn't what people were talking about right then. I should have been hammering away almost entirely on the lockdowns, on the economic devastation that was being caused by them, And that's really one main thing there on how the government completely screwed things up with COVID, and then especially during the summer when the protests were happening and the rioting was happening, about how government officials and agents not being held accountable led to this unrest and chaos that we were seeing, and that the only way it was going to end was to have them be held just as accountable as the rest of us. In retrospect, I should have been more focused on that. And moving forward, I think that that's a really important thing for people to remember. When you are campaigning, you find the main things you want to talk about and you hammer away at those. It doesn't mean you don't have answers for the other things, but absent anyone else asking anything else, that's what you're there to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. I think too, what at least maybe from my assumption of being up here with you guys, I think you're all echoing the same thing, really ultimately, which I love with this question, which is that you all being involved directly in the behind-the-scenes processes and activism in different levels and campaigns and different things, none of you had anything necessarily bad that you can say about the direction that the party is moving into with where we're going and the messaging we're trying to put through. Because we're all, and like what you guys all kind of touched on too, is that we're all working so hard in our own little facets and our own little revolutions, and you can't sit there and judge what somebody else is doing in the movement. Mm-hmm. You just need to focus on the hard work you're doing and the impact you're making, and then eventually you'll realize that we're all in the same boat in the same river anyway.
Lead by example.
You know, and so I love that. You know, it's great to see. I think the committee had put this together, I think, purposefully because there is always that knee-jerk reaction after every single election of what did we do wrong? You know, what could we have done better?
Post-mortem,
and I think everybody's always looking for that place to blame and those areas they can say, well, that wasn't enough or we didn't do that enough. And I think we need to change that conversation around to, well, what did you do to make this better? What did you do? You know, you're sitting here complaining that this wasn't good enough. Yep. What did you personally do to make it better and spread the word and, you know, help them get elected? So I love it. I love that you guys.
I'm going to pull an Adam right here for a second and
add
something.
Adam, but
well, you can. I'll
you all can pull Adam.
Okay, we're all pulling Adam.
And Adam can pull a spike. I don't know.
There's another area in general. Oh, then he's going to show some nipples, right?
Hopefully he doesn't.
All right.
Okay.
I guess I will be starting that OnlyFans account.
Yeah. This isn't really with campaigns, but with just affiliate parties and everything in general. We do focus a lot in elections, of course, because we're a political party. But what happens is right now we're not winning a lot of elections. We're winning some, which is awesome. But nobody likes to feel like a loser all the time, and we do lose people because of that. I think we need to reclaim the idea that there's more to electoral politics than just the actual elections. Yep. We can win on issues. We can win on petition drives. And we'll win more on that. We need to give our activists some wins because nobody likes feeling like a loser. Yep. So I do think we need to concentrate more on coalitions with single issue groups that we agree upon that maybe even have more money that we do. Pick a winnable issue because we need some wins, pair up with those groups, knock that down at least to give some fuel to our activists.
And when you're, sorry.
And that's just as valid of electoral politics as electing candidates. There's multiple avenues. And I've often said, and I'm not going to do this because I'm not masochistic, but if I was ever the state chair of Colorado, that's what I would do. I would pick two issues and I'd go, we're going to win these two issues.
Yep. Sure. And by working with these larger organizations, we have the best ideas. The more we are in front of other people and the more that they hear, well, I agree with them on this. And yeah, consistently it would make sense that I should agree with them on this as well. We bring more people in that way as well long term. Something I say a lot is that the more you bring people into your orbit, the more you affect them with your gravity. The more you can bring them in, the more they hear your ideas, the more it starts to make sense to them, and the more they realize that they agree with you on more than just that original thing. The last thing I want to say, and then I'll let Adam.
Then you'll let Adam be Adam.
I'll let Adam pull a.
Adam.
I'll let Adam. Is we have a false dichotomy that we've been sold in this party very often. Like we make fun of the Republicans and Democrats for their false dichotomy, the Republican, good cop, bad cop, lesser evil, rope-a-dope game they play. But we have one as well. We're told often that we either need to water down our message because we need to be more relatable, and that the way we become relatable is by basically messaging the way they're already used to and selling them, rehashed Republican and Democrat ideas that are just slightly tweaked to sound a little bit more libertarian, or we have to go the other way. We have to be brutalist. We have to go in, we have to tell people that, if someone's asking about education, we say, oh, I don't owe you a thing, and what do you think, I'm your slave, and oh, you're some kind of welfare queen for your kids. Like, that's also bad, right? We don't have to choose between being a prick or being milquetoast.
Right.
The reality is, not only are those not the only choices we have, they're uniquely terrible choices to make in the first place. I don't want to leave someone uninspired and uninterested in finding out more about me, and I certainly don't want them to hate me. Instead, I would rather meet them where they are, empathize with what their concerns are, show them how we got here with those bad policies and how our libertarian solutions fix the problems that they're facing. When you do that, you can take them on the journey all the way to our end goal. I don't have to go into, when I went into a live stream during the campaign with a bunch of union member teachers in California who wanted to hear libertarian solutions to education, I didn't tell them, well, if you think about it, school choice might be a great idea. I explained how the federal government screwed everything up in the first place, how they'd spent nearly $3 trillion over nearly 50 years, and how during that time we went from number 1 in education to nearly number 30. And I talked about completely getting the federal government out of it and getting the state governments out of it and putting it in the hands of those teachers and their schools and their districts so that they could decide what their schools look like. But before I did any of that, I empathized with them. I empathized with those teachers who were having to label their students special needs when they knew they weren't special needs, but it was the only way to keep their funding for their testing because their test scores weren't good enough. So then those kids get put in special needs classes. I empathize with the special needs teacher that was on the panel I was talking to about the fact that she was having to deal with a bunch of students who were not special needs and were now being made fun of by their friends and were taking it out on the actual special needs students in that class and how they were powerless to do anything about it because they had been taught how to do one-on-one education, early intervention, one-on-one small group education for special needs students, and now they got a class of 50 kids, most of whom shouldn't even be in there. And I empathize with the school board members that were on there about the fact that every time they get together, they don't get to actually make decisions for their schools. They just have federal and state diktat handed down to them, and they have to figure out how to shoehorn that into their policy without completely screwing the kids over. And I empathize with the principal who was there, who was trying to, set policy for the school based on what the feds in the states were telling them, as opposed to being able to decide what they actually needed. And once I did that, and 2 of them were crying because they were so upset, or they recognized that someone understood why they were so upset, then I explained how we got here. Then I explained how we fix it. I sold a bunch of union member teachers and school board members on not just getting the feds out of it, not just getting the states out of it. I didn't rule out privatizing all education. And 2 of them joined the Libertarian Party by the end of that stream because I had empathized with them. There's nothing magic about what I did. Meet people where they are, empathize with them, explain how we got here, and then take them on the journey. We can do that all day long on every single subject.
Absolutely. Even within our own party.
Even within, I wasn't going to say that, but yes.
Healing one movement at a time.
Yeah. But you guys want to win?
Yes.
Yeah? Who won the 2020 election?
We did.
Nobody.
Drugs. It's a big year for drugs. Drugs won.
Yeah.
In the war on drugs, the people on drugs are winning the war on drugs. Woo! That's us, right? Right? Oh, shit.
No,
Is it just me? No, okay. Now, I use that as an example because what makes us unique as libertarians, or what leads a lot of us to this understanding of the world, is we ask big questions that most people are just happy to let go and ignore. Like, oh, why does this injustice happen? Why do we do things this way? Is this really the best way for society to be organized?
Right.
These aren't like, normal grade school conversation starters that teachers are encouraging students to think about, right? No kidding. But there's another big question that I don't think we even here ask once we get here, which is, are we going to win or lose? Big question, right? Liberty, humanity. Are we going to win or lose? Mm-hmm. And I say, we're winning. This is to my vision that is so motivating to me of human progress, of humanity dancing forward, that the human experience is exponential.
Absolutely.
the progress towards a voluntary society, and every libertarian's like, well, what about this? Yeah, there are caveats. The progress towards a voluntary society for humanity is more or less inevitable. I mean, we don't blow ourselves up with nukes first. We don't get like a real version of COVID, or if we don't get aliens come and blow up the planet first. Like, humanity gets less violent over time. That's a win. Now, I cite Steven Pinker, Harvard professor, Surprising Decline in Violence, Better Angels Over Nature, proven academically that humanity is following this almost exponential or radioactive decay curve of violence on the decline over human history. And to me, this is fundamentally connected to the nature of life itself. Multi-celled organisms beat out single-celled organisms, all the way up to human societies that cooperate are going to outcompete those that are always fighting.
Yep.
No shit.
Yep.
Right? Are we winning? We might never win at the ballot box. But I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if I saw that I was fighting the tide or trying to steer humanity to my vision or some other egotistical bullshit like that. No, I'm just doing my best to move humanity forward, to be a part of that positive force, moving us towards a voluntary society. It's like the idea of winning. We need to be asking the deeper questions, like, how are we winning? Because we might win and never win an issue. Like, you just see Republicans and Democrats just slowly come our way, one issue at a time. We kill this part of the government racket and then this part in technology. I mean, do you really, war. It's really hard in the age of the internet to convince millions of gullible young men to dress up in silly costumes and meet in the middle of a field where none of them live and kill each other because they're wearing different colors.
Yeah, and then you can watch a YouTube video about somebody in that culture and learn about them, and it's so
Technology is
interconnected.
running all of this obsolete, and we just, how do we measure what's winning, what's effective? Just enjoy the moment and just know that you're a part of that progress of humanity. And then those kind of other metrics just fall to the side.
Now, JBH made me promise to do something, and I don't want to get beaten, when I go to, you all don't know what they do to us. It's awful. Help me. No,
Are you blinking
yeah,
twice right now?
I'm blinking SOS.
Think twice if we need to raid
yeah.
LP headquarters.
Listen, I know some people in this room probably are not National Party members. And you probably have, some of you will have some reasons why you don't want to do that. I'd ask that you talk to me privately about it, because I probably can give you some solutions to that will solve whatever ethical or moral or whatever problems you might have. If you believe in what we're doing with the CRM project, with the Frontier project, with the ballot access projects that we do, and it does benefit your state. Some of you might not know the number of delegates you guys get for National Convention is directly related to the number of National Party members you have. Yep. So by donating and becoming at least a $25 a year dues-paying national member, you are benefiting Wisconsin. So please, if you're not a national member tonight, please become one. It will benefit your state, and it will benefit the party as a whole.
And I'll take the beating on behalf of the national fundraising team. Secret link, lp.org/free membership. You can still help your state. Yes, he's rolling around.
No, you don't get delegates from that.
That doesn't count for the
No,
delegate. You have to be paid.
Right, no, you're right. That is just, no, you have to be, didn't you read the bylaws? See, that's why you hate bylaws. Right.
There it is.
Listen, I do the delegate counts, and you're questioning the national.
I'm trying to rep the Povertarian Caucus here. There's a free way to join LP National.
Oh, you.
And if you can't afford the $25 yet, you should join anyway.
You should
join
That's
anyway.
My point.
Yeah.
You should, because you have to sign the pledge. But if you want to help both the National Party and get your delegate counts up.
Yes.
And I am sure if anyone here is a Povertarian, there are others who are
will
more
sponsor
blessed at
you.
the moment
Yep.
that will sponsor you. That always happens.
And
we've all been there. I was rolling in money last year. Let me tell you, I'm 2 months behind on my mortgage right now. There's no shame. I mean, we all go through those times. But you do help everybody when you do that. And I'd be more than glad to answer any questions or objections you might have. Now I don't get beat.
Spike, did you want to say something?
I was just going to say, and if you wanted a fancy pin, for $1,500 one time, you become a lifetime member. And once you pay that, you don't have to pay anything. They don't tell you that part. You don't have to pay anything after that. They never bother you for 25 bucks again. They will ask you to give them money for other things, but technically you remain a member. You can tell them no and stay in the party.
And you count towards the delegate count.
And you count towards the
permanently.
delegate count in perpetuity. Well, until you die.
Well, there was afterlife memberships but that's the whole other thing.
Ask her about
pet
afterlife
memberships.
memberships. The best way to build towards the future is for your delegate roll count to be immortal. So contact Karen Ann about that.
All right, so that seems like a really great place to
Join
kind of...
the LP, smoke weed, live forever.
Live forever.
For those, obviously everybody here is in the LPWI, I wanted to make the announcement that tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. is when the new XCOM is going to meet. 10 a.m. tomorrow upstairs. So if you guys want to join me for that, like I said, I do have a plan of action I would like to sit and talk with you all about and figure out how we can all work together, for the state. So definitely join me for that. And thanks to these wonderful guests for coming and having this great conversation with us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I need to get a picture with you before we go.
Thank you.